What if I told you that the most powerful technology you will ever use is not in your phone, your computer, or even artificial intelligence, but in your voice? Every word you speak sends a signal, not just to others, but to your own nervous system, your own biology, and your own future. Because communication is not just the exchange of information, it is the transmission of energy, intention, and meaning. And today, we're going to explore how to speak smart, not louder, not faster, but more consciously. We often tell ourselves that words are harmless. They're just words we say, as if what we speak could not possibly change the world around us or the world within us. Yet modern science is showing us something far more profound. The words we choose are not merely labels or reflections of reality. They are the very tools that shape reality itself. Every time we speak, we are sending messages not only to those who listen, but to our own brains, our own bodies, and even to the way our future unfolds. Cognitive psychology and neuroscience reveal that language has a tangible effect on our perception. When we assign a label to an experience, the brain does not simply acknowledge it, it reacts as if that label is the experience. The hormones, the neural pathways, the subtle tension in our muscles, all respond to the words we choose. Studies show that when people describe stress as damaging or overwhelming, cortisol levels spike, the heart races, and the body enters a state of threat. But when the same stress is reframed as a challenge preparing the body, performance improves, focus sharpens, and resilience rises. This is not theory, it is biology in motion. The difference lies in the words, not the circumstances. Consider the simple but powerful shift in personal language. When someone says, "I'm terrible at this," they are literally signaling their brain to close doors, to inhibit learning, and to reinforce doubt. But when they say, "I'm learning this," neural pathways open, curiosity awakens, and the mind becomes fertile for growth. One phrase shuts down potential, the other invites possibility, one breeds fear, the other nurtures courage. In our daily lives, most of us speak without realizing the weight our words carry. A careless comment, a repeated negative phrase, a self-judgment. These are not neutral, they are instructions to the body, commands to the mind. Smart speakers understand that communication is not a passive act. It is a creative act, a deliberate choice to shape the world moment by moment, conversation by conversation. When we speak with awareness, we are no longer merely reacting to reality. We are consciously building a reality that reflects intention, growth, and possibility. Each word becomes a seed, and with careful attention, those seeds grow into experiences, relationships, and lives that embody the best of what we can imagine. Here's something most people overlook, even though it happens every moment of every day. The human brain decides how it feels long before it decides what it thinks. Before we weigh evidence, before we analyze logic, before we form an opinion, our emotional centers, the amygdala and other limbic structures, have already fired, sending a cascade of signals through our nervous system. In other words, we feel first and we think second. This is why facts alone rarely persuade, why debates often dissolve into frustration, and why arguments fail when they ignore emotion. No matter how correct your point is, if it lands on a tense, defensive, or fearful mind, it will be rejected, resisted, or forgotten. Think about a moment in your life when someone corrected you harshly. Maybe it was a teacher, a boss, or even a parent. Even if what they said was true, how much of it did you actually hear? Chances are a part of you tuned out, bristled, or built walls of defense. Contrast that with a moment when someone delivered the same feedback with empathy, calm, and presence. Perhaps they chose their words slowly, their tone steady, their eyes attentive. Suddenly, the same information, the same truth felt different. It became digestible. It became actionable. It became something you could integrate rather than resist. That is the invisible power of emotional resonance in communication. Smart. Communication begins with emotional awareness. It starts by asking yourself, how does my tone feel? What emotion am I transmitting, even before I speak? Am I speaking to prove I am right or to create understanding? These questions are simple, but their impact is profound. They force a shift from performance to connection, from argument to influence. People rarely remember the exact words we speak. They may not even recall the details of the message. What they will always remember, often for years, is how our words made them feel. When you recognize this, when you internalize it, communication transforms from a mere exchange of facts into a force of influence and connection. Every conversation becomes a choice to inspire, to calm, to open minds, or to close doors. The power is not in logic alone, it is in the emotions your words awaken, the trust you build, and the resonance you leave behind. Speaking with awareness of this truth is what separates ordinary dialogue from transformative communication. In a world that celebrates speed, where answers are expected instantly and conversations are often rushed, silence has become almost invisible. We are uncomfortable with it, as if any moment without words is wasted. Yet silence is not emptiness. Silence is power. Silence is presence. It is in the pauses that meaning finds space to grow, that ideas take root, and that influence is quietly strengthened. When we rush our words, we risk diluting them, scattering our energy, and leaving others overwhelmed or unengaged. But when we pause, something remarkable happens. We command attention without saying a single word. Research in communication and psychology shows that speakers who use pauses strategically are consistently perceived as more confident. Listeners retain more of what is said. The brain has a natural rhythm that needs space to process, to integrate, to absorb. Every pause is an opportunity to emphasize the weight of a thought, the significance of a point, the depth of an insight. A pause allows not just the audience, but also the speaker to breathe, to align body, mind, and intention before moving forward. It transforms a sequence of words into a moment that resonates. Consider a conversation you remember deeply. Was it the rapid stream of information that stayed with you, or was it the quiet moments, the pauses, the spaces where a word, a thought, or an insight landed fully before the next one arrived? Those spaces are often where the most powerful transformations occur. Silence gives the listener time to reflect, to connect, to internalize. It signals confidence, it signals presence, it signals trust in both yourself and your message. When you pause, you are not hesitating, you are choosing to give your words weight. You are allowing them to land where they matter most. You are showing that you are grounded, centered, and deliberate. Smart communicators understand that communication is not measured by speed or quantity, but by the depth of impact. They do not fill every moment with sound because they know that the most powerful moments often emerge from the quiet spaces in between. They speak with intention, with patience, with trust in the resonance of their own voice. They understand that a well-timed pause is not a break in communication, but the very vehicle of influence itself. Many people speak to impress. They carefully craft sentences to sound smart, to win approval, to be admired. But the truth is, people rarely respond to performance. What draws attention, what inspires trust, and what moves people to action is not how polished your words are. It's whether your words are aligned with your truth. Smart communicators understand that speaking is not about performance. It is about alignment. It is about ensuring that your words match your values, that your tone matches your intention, and that your message resonates with the reality of who you are. Alignment is not something you can fake. It is a state of being. When your words and intentions are coherent, your body responds, your heart rate steadies, your breathing slows, your posture shifts. You inhabit the space you occupy with presence. There is a subtle energy that emerges when intention and expression merge, a kind of resonance that people can sense instinctively. You felt it before, perhaps in a conversation, a lecture, or even a brief exchange, when someone spoke and something inside you said, "This feels real." That is not about charm or charisma. That is coherence. That is alignment. The power of aligned communication is that it bypasses resistance. People do not listen because they are obligated. They listen because your authenticity creates a bridge. Your inner state and your outer expression match, and in that match, trust is born. You do not need to prove yourself. You do not need to perform. The alignment itself carries authority, influence, and presence. It signals to others that what you are saying is grounded in truth and that it comes from a place of genuine intention, not manipulation. Consider the difference between someone reading a script they don't believe in and someone speaking from experience, from conviction, from the core of who they are. One voice feels hollow, the other resonates. One demands attention, the other earns it effortlessly. Alignment transforms communication from a mechanical act into a living exchange. It allows your words to carry weight, your message to inspire reflection, and your presence to leave a lasting impression. When you speak from alignment, you are no longer just conveying information. You are sharing a part of yourself, a truth that invites connection, understanding, and transformation. Smart communication is not measured by how well you speak, but by how well you ask. Questions are the invisible architecture of conversation. They guide attention, shape perception, and ultimately determine the experience of both the speaker and the listener. Every question carries energy. Every question directs focus. When we ask poorly, we reinforce defensiveness, resistance, or confusion. When we ask well, we create space, unlock possibilities, and invite transformation. Consider the difference between the questions we habitually ask. Instead of saying, "Why are you so difficult?" a question loaded with judgment and resistance, what if we ask, "What matters most to you right now?" Suddenly, the energy of the conversation shifts. The listener feels seen, understood, and invited into collaboration rather than confrontation. Instead of asking, "What's wrong?" a phrase that triggers defensiveness, we could ask, "What do you need?" and watch the walls of resistance dissolve, replaced by openness and connection. This is not simply a matter of politeness, it is a matter of psychology. Researchers call this cognitive reframing, the ability to change the mental frame of a situation through language. A single question framed with curiosity and intention can redirect the course of thought, open new neural pathways, and create a space where solutions, insights, and cooperation emerge naturally. It is one of the most powerful tools in human interaction, yet it is often overlooked because we are so focused on statements, arguments, and proving ourselves right. Great communicators do not dominate conversations. They do not coerce or manipulate. Instead, they guide. They create a flow in which curiosity, empathy, and openness lead the way. Every question is a key, unlocking doors that force and pressure never could. When asked with genuine interest and presence, a question becomes an invitation to reflect, to share, to connect, and to transform. Think of a time when someone asked you a question that stopped you in your tracks, one that made you pause, think deeply, or see yourself in the situation differently. That moment of reflection, sparked by a well-placed question, often leads to breakthroughs far greater than any answer could provide. When we learn to ask better questions, we are no longer simply exchanging information. We are shaping experiences, guiding perception, and co-creating possibilities. The right question, at the right moment, has the power to transform conversations, relationships, and ultimately lives. The words we choose do more than communicate with others. They communicate with ourselves. Fear-based language contracts the body, tightens the muscles, and narrows the mind. Hope-based language, on the other hand, expands it, opens perception, and prepares us to act with clarity. Consider the difference between saying, "I can't mess this up," and saying, "I'm prepared for this moment." On the surface, the meaning seems similar. Both acknowledge responsibility, both reflect awareness of a challenge, but the signals they send to the brain are profoundly different. The first phrase triggers tension, doubt, and hesitation. The second primes focus, readiness, and resilience. Our brains respond to language as instruction. Every word, every phrase we utter becomes a blueprint for how we move through the world. When we speak fear, we reinforce fear in the body, the mind, and even in the energy we project to others. When we speak possibility, we create pathways for courage, creativity, and growth. The simple act of choosing one word over another can shape not only our experience of a situation, but also our performance, our presence, and the influence we have on those around us. Think of a high-stakes moment before a presentation, an exam, or an important conversation. Many people silently repeat phrases of fear to themselves, tightening their body and closing off their potential. Yet those who intentionally speak words of preparedness, possibility, and confidence experience a shift in physiology. Heart rate stabilizes, breathing deepens, and the nervous system aligns with action rather than resistance. Their focus sharpens, their voice steadies, and their presence becomes magnetic. The voice we hear most clearly is our own. The words we choose internally ripple outward, shaping not only our own actions, but also the responses of those around us. Smart communicators understand this. They do not allow fear to dictate language. They choose words that support growth, resilience, and clarity, especially under pressure. They speak to the future they want, not the fear they feel, and in doing so, they open doors that fear alone would keep closed. When you learn to speak in this way, every challenge becomes an opportunity. Every conversation becomes a chance to reinforce strength and possibility. You are no longer at the mercy of fear. You are using language as a tool to shape reality, to expand potential, and to create a future that reflects courage, clarity, and vision. The words you speak and the words you think are your most immediate and powerful instruments of transformation. Every conversation we have is more than a casual exchange of words. Every word we speak carries energy, carries direction, carries consequence. With each sentence, we are making a choice, whether to lift, to inspire, to connect, or whether to diminish, to confuse, to close doors. The reality is that your voice is not just a tool for communication, it is a tool of creation. Each time you speak, you are shaping the way your mind processes the world, the way others perceive you, and the way your life unfolds. The words you choose today become the architecture of your tomorrow. Think of it for a moment. The voice you hear most often is your own. The words you repeat silently, the language you use when no one is listening, they are programming your nervous system, your beliefs, and your perception of what is possible. When we speak with awareness, with intention, and with emotional intelligence, we are no longer passive participants in life. We are actively co-creating it. We are speaking not only to others, but to ourselves, guiding our hearts and minds toward clarity, confidence, and resilience. The impact is subtle yet profound. It ripples out through relationships, decisions, and opportunities in ways that are often invisible at first, but undeniable over time. Smart communication is not about impressing others with clever phrasing or polished sentences. It is about aligning your words with your values, your intentions, and the truth of who you are. When your inner state matches your outer expression, your voice carries a resonance that demands attention, not through force, but through trust. People listen because they feel your presence, your authenticity, and your coherence. They respond because your language opens a door that mere instruction or persuasion cannot. So the next time you speak, pause for a moment and ask yourself, are my words building the world I want to live in? Are they planting seeds of possibility, hope, and understanding, or are they reinforcing fear, doubt, or limitation? Every conversation is an opportunity. Every phrase is a choice. When you understand the psychology of communication, your voice ceases to be just sound. It becomes influence. It becomes power. It becomes a tool for shaping reality itself. What you say matters. The intention behind your words matters even more. Speak wisely, speak consciously, and you will discover that the life you imagine is not just a dream. It is a reality you are actively creating with every word you speak.